And so so it's going to be flavored to that experience level, but I'm going to try to keep it as general as possible. And like Jennifer said, we can try to address as much as you possibly can from the chat, and then in the end I will have my contact information, so feel free to reach out to me. I love to talk about this subject, so so you know, I'm welcome to bounce some ideas off it at any point. You know, it's really hard to believe when I look at this, it's hard to believe that it's June 23rd right now. And so it could be April, it could be August. I don't know. I'm in this time vault, it's this vortex of uncertainty from a time standpoint. And so I know that specific to our clients, that if we're not intentional and accountable, another 3 months will pass us by and we won't have a clue of what's going on if we haven't been intentional and accountable to those relationships. So that's why this subject is especially current for right now. And in terms of current conditions, let me just kind of, like Jennifer said, I am a Gallup StrengthsFinder certified coach. And so a lot of this presentation weaves in statistics specific to Gallup, and Gallup is the original, you know, polling organization from the 1900s. They've been around over 100 years. And so I weave in a lot of their statistics just because I have access to a lot of their information. And so in 2019, Gallup did a survey, and the analytics showed that 71% of B2B customers were ready to take their business elsewhere. Over half of them, or only half of them, believe that their vendor delivered on what their salespeople promised, right? And about half of them actually felt proud to call their vendor, you know, that they were their vendor's customer. And so that was last year. And given what we're in right now in terms of this crazy uncertainty of a time, you can imagine that it would be exacerbated, and our clients might be even more frustrated in terms of what's going on right now and the uncertainty. So I bring this up just to make light of, or make awareness of, our clients are already considering somebody else. And then when you layer on this pandemic and you layer on the economic strife, if you're not paying attention to your clients, someone else will be, right? And so it brings to light even more the importance of having that, you know, that client service, that client experience type of mindset, to make sure that it's at the front of what you do. And there is a difference between client experience and client service. Client experience sums up every interaction that the client has with your brand. So it can start from something like your website, the social media interactions. You know, it could be a chotski that you gave to your client, and it includes customer service. Customer service is only the interaction between you and your client in response to a support need that the client may have overall. So what is your brand saying? What is that client experience that your client has? So when your name comes to mind, they think, oh, it's something really good about your company. And then in addition to that, if they're thinking about the industry, your name comes up at the top of the list in terms of, if I have a need in whatever particular sector it is, maybe it's maybe it's a drywall, you know, who is it that comes to mind if you need a drywall contractor immediately? You want your name to be at the top of the list. It may not be number one, but you want it to be in the top 3, right? And so when I think of the ultimate client experience, I think of Disney, and Walt Disney specifically. You know, the last few years, Disney has faltered. They're trying to get it back on track again, but specifically the Disney when Walt Disney was in charge. And so that brand experience, the cleanliness, the bringing everything back to the client at the end of the day, you want to make sure that that is how your clients perceive you overall. And so why is the client experience important? It's because that overall brand loyalty and repeat customer experience all relies upon it. And so if you don't know what your clients are thinking of you, then you better start thinking about it right now in terms of putting together some kind of program to understand it. And then, by the way, Disney does this so well that they actually have a whole client, it's called CX, client experience type of program that they actually sell to people that aren't part of Disney because they do it so well. client experience is really tested in the trials. And so trials like we're going through today really, really test overall, specifically your client experience. And you're not going to do everything right. And so I'm in this picture, by the way. This is when I was working at Balfour Beatty. This is the Marriott Marquis project when it was still a hole in the ground. And so, I put this in here just so that I can tell the story. That project, we had a hard stop deadline of delivering that project right before the Super Bowl a few years ago. And about August of that year, we looked at the timeline and figured out that operations was going to have a hard time really fulfilling that deadline. And so knowing how important that client was to us, knowing how important that deadline was to us, our senior most leader here in the Houston market, actually, we figured out a way to make him ready. So then that way he could go and spend all of his time on the job site, troubleshooting, being there for a client, being there in brass to brass meetings, really knowing what was going on. And so because of it, and it wasn't only because of that, but it definitely helped quite a bit. The client knew how important they were to us and how important their delivery was to us overall. And so at the end of the day, we did fulfill that deadline. However, the relationship was truly proven up because of the dedication that you have at the senior most level in the local office to the client overall. So what message are you sending specifically in the relationships that you have? And so are you putting the client at the center of those relationships that you have? So the baseline client experience has to start with your customer at the entire center, knowing your client, knowing what speaks to them, what messages are you sending with them? Are you empowering your employees to be able to fulfill what they need to do specific to that client? And then ultimately, it's kind of a rinse and repeat. If you're continuing to do it really, really well, then they're going to continue to come back to you because they know that you're going to be proven up in the trenches within it. So, and I speak of in the trenches because a lot of times that's when you are truly testing your relationships. It would be great if everything went, fantastically all the time, but let's face it, it doesn't. And so being able to develop those relationships in the good times is really important because they're proven up in the hard times. And so Amy Cuddy is she's a Harvard Business School professor, and she basically says something that I've heard for many years, but she puts it in a really good flavor, in that you have to build the trust first, and only when you have the trust does your experience, does your qualifications mean any difference to the client. So if you lead with your experience, especially when you're trying to sell someone, if all you do is lead with your experience and beat your chest and say, oh, I'm so great because I've done all of this, that doesn't really matter unless you really can convey to the client that you're going to be there in the hard times overall. And so that trust element really is important in terms of getting to that trusted advisor status. And during these times as we are in right now, being a trusted advisor to our clients, so then that way they come to us, even if you're not making money off of them, these are the proving times overall, because when you're tested in conflict, they remember. And so the R in this, the reliability aspect of it, I think in this equation is the absolute most important, at least it is to me, because our clients are going to test us in the small things before they continue to give us bigger things. Oftentimes we want to go after those whale projects from a business development standpoint, and we want to pursue the biggest, nicest, juiciest piece of project that the client might have. But really, you have to prove yourself in the small things. You have to follow up in the small things to ultimately get to that relationship. And so unless you have that credibility, like Amy Cuddy talks about, the reliability, the intimacy to be able to understand that client, and then have a self-orientation, know when is the time for ask to work, and when is the time to ask for work, and when is the time to just be there ultimately. only that will lead you to the trustworthiness. Only that will lead you to the loyalty ultimately that actually has the relationship that ensures the client for the long haul. And this is kind of proven up also in terms of being the tortoise. So showing up and often right now is super important. A lot of times right now we are being asked to do freebies, right? And so, you know, we still have to pay our bills, but we're being asked, can I pick your brain? Can I, you know, will you do this for free right now? And I mean, you have to do it within reason, but there is a business case for doing those freebies right now, because when the market comes back, and ultimately it will come back, when the market, your clients are going to remember what you did for them in the trenches. And so it's a marathon and not a sprint. Also, you don't want to be one of those kind of ambulance chasers in the hard times. You can pivot to the market, but ultimately it's being there and being consistent overall. Also, making sure if you are in a client-specific target market. So, for instance, I'll give you the for instance of the private sector. Right now, there's not a lot of work going on in the private sector. However, if the private sector has been, you know, your typical target market from the past, don't ignore them and only go towards, you know, other markets that have activity. Don't forget about, you know, dance with the one that brung you. I think that's a Texas saying. I'm from Louisiana, but, you know, make sure that you're staying in touch, because that market will come back and those clients will remember if you didn't stay in touch with them during these times. Because let's face it, if you're not in touch with them, it's that top of mind awareness. Somebody else will be. And so your clients, your competitors are going to be in touch with your clients. Also, making sure that you keep up with and stay strong in terms of your communication skills. The Power of Nice is a great, it's a 30-year-old book, but I still go back to it and I bring up, these are just some of the concepts from The Power of Nice. Ultimately, if you want to sum this slide up, it's how do you make your clients feel? And so, so I can't see everyone, because there's a lot of people that have their video off on the screen, but so I don't know what demographic from an age standpoint. But the guy in the corner, I'm going to show my age here. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a TV show called Fantasy Island. And so the guy, it was, you know, Mr. Rourke and Tattoo, and they would welcome you to Fantasy Island. And so I bring this up because Mr. Rourke, you can't see my hands, his arms would always be wide open. He's just like, welcome to Fantasy Island. And so you knew that you had a good feeling of being welcome there. And so a few years ago, I started working with a CPA in Sugar Land. Fantastic gentleman, makes me feel like super, you know, secure in terms of my taxes being done well. But more than anything, he is one of the most welcoming people I have ever seen. When I show up, his arms are wide open. He's like, Dawn, how have you been? It's great to see you. And I feel really, really you know, if there's a trust there. And so one day I left there and I called my husband. I said, he reminds me of Mr. Rourke from Fantasy Island. I said, he's never given us bad news, but I'm pretty sure that even if he had ever given me bad news, I would be okay with it. I don't mind going to see my CPA, and there are very few people that can say that, I'm sure, because Siraj just makes me feel like he has it. He's on it. You know, he's very competent in what he does, but he also cares about me overall as a person. It's not just business. I'm not just a number for him. So when you think about your clients, how do you make them feel? Are they excited to see you, or are you like, oh, Dawn is coming to see me, I dread it, she's so negative? You know, I actually wrote a blog post last year. Are you Mr. Rourke or are you Eeyore? You know, who are you and how do you make your clients ultimately feel? And so we learn a lot from our unhappy clients. And Bill Gates actually points this out in this quote overall. And so understanding your unhappy clients is not just ignoring your unhappy clients. It's making sure that you understand what your clients are saying about you. So are you asking your clients how you are doing? Are you staying accountable and intentional to your existing clients, because paying attention to what they're saying will help you improve their quality experience overall. So many people want to focus on surveys and do these digital surveys, which takes out the human element of the survey process and in terms of getting them. And I don't know about you, I don't fill out digital surveys anymore. I just won't do it. And so, you know, unless I have something bad to say, that's what most people fill out customer surveys, is only when there's, you know, something bad to say. Making sure that you have a not a quantitative survey process, but a qualitative survey process where you're getting in front of your clients and asking them what the experience is. It's also important maybe to have a third-party surveyor. So I do that for some of my clients. I actually go in, we come up with a set list of questions that we have, and then I ask their clients how they're doing. It is amazing the things that their clients tell me about my client, because I don't have their logo on my business card. They feel freer to tell me, because you don't want to hurt someone's, you know, feelings. And so it allows them an opportunity, allows my clients an opportunity to cinch up the areas where they may, you know, that them or some of their team members might not be specifically servicing the account. And it's really important to ask at various intervals throughout the project, because the worst thing to do is have a survey process where you ask the client only at the end of the project, when if you ask them at the beginning or somewhere, you know, maybe a quarter into the project, where you can course correct and improve the client experience before you get to all the way to the end of the project. And I have an example of that. I have one of my clients, I went in and interviewed one of their clients, and it's in the K through 12 sector. And one of their clients is the superintendent. And he loved the project manager that was appointed to the project. But he said, God bless America. He said, I get these emails from him. And he's like, I think he's trying to justify his existence. But he sends me this really long email, like with everything he's done. And at the very bottom, he has the ask of what he needs from me. He's like, I just don't have that kind of time. He said, if I could change anything, because he had given them all like 4.5s and 4 out of 5 and 5 out of 5s. He said, but if I could change anything, it would be to, you know, cut to the chase, you know, just ask me what you need to ask me, and then let's get on down the road. That was early in the project. Can you imagine if they would have gone 18 months into the project, and how annoying it would be if this PM kept leaving 3-minute voicemail messages and really long emails for this client. So it gave my client an opportunity to have a coaching experience with their PM to be able to make them better. So are you asking the right questions? And then ultimately, are you following up and responding specific to what your client is telling you? And so making sure that you are always in a timely and an expeditious and a professional manner, keeping track of what your clients are saying. So everyone always wants to know, what's the secret sauce from a business development standpoint? Following through is as much secret sauce as anything in terms of making sure that you are you're responding to your client and improving the quality experience overall. And so I would be remiss in terms of talking about this if I wouldn't highlight the most important ingredient to the client experience, and it starts with the employee, right? And so Herb Kelleher with Southwest Airlines proved it up. Most importantly, everything starts with happy employees, and especially right now, paying particular attention to your employee culture and making sure that your employees know that you appreciate them, that they're cared for ultimately, that you appreciate, you understand that they're nervous, that their safety is paramount to you. It will pay dividends in the long run from a loyalty standpoint. Your employees are paying attention to what you do right now, and are you taking care of them for the long haul? Because if you're not taking care of them, they can't take care of your clients ultimately. So once again, Gallup actually has created, and this is a graphic that they created many, many years ago that I think is super applicable even today. Because if you start with your employees and identifying where their strengths are, making sure that your employees are, in the right seat on the bus, ultimately, making sure that your managers know how to manage those employees to their strength level. That ultimately will lead to engaged employees, which ultimately leads to, engaged customers and clients. And then and only then can you have a higher revenue, higher stock increase, all those different things. But you have to start with your employees. That's at the root of success ultimately. So how are we doing on time here? Oh, we're right on time. So I'm culminating this to ask you, what has been your biggest lesson learned about your client experience? Have you thought about it overall? And so this is just an exercise. When I do this as a full presentation, I actually have several exercises that I weave in to the full hour. But I leave you here today to ask you, what are 3 things that you could do to advance that client service experience overall? And working with one of my previous clients, they narrowed it down for them specifically within 4 buckets. And so this is just a nice example. We created icons specifically with it, making sure that your employees are happy, kind, respectful, and appreciative, striving for better communication, both internally and externally, proactive, staying accountable, being available to their clients, building those relationships early, and then staying current and relevant with technology. So those are 4 examples that worked for that particular client. And so I'm gonna kind of open it up right now for questions. Jennifer, I don't know if you had any questions in the chat box.
No questions yet. We'll give folks a couple of minutes to type those out. I would like to say that we did record this session, and Dawn has given us permission to share this recorded session if you'd like a copy of it. Dawn, you can provide your email in the chat box, and I'll provide mine as well. Just reach out to one of us and we'll get it out to you. And just remember, you can still type your questions in the chat box. My email is coming through right now.
And I want to encourage people, if you're not connected to me, connect with me on LinkedIn, because I like I said, I regularly post a weekly blog specific to business development, client relations, strengths finder. I do a variety of those. Those are all free. And then also on my website, I have a free ebook that you can download regarding the client relations and business development overall. And then my contact information is at the bottom right there. So the second part in this mini series is going to occur on July 21st, right, Jennifer? And we're going to talk specifically regarding business development. And so
I haven't seen any questions come through yet, Dawn. They do have your contact information as well as mine. So I think you've done a great job. We really appreciate you taking time out of your morning to do this and helping out the association and our members. Again, kudos to you for everything you do for our industry and our community. Really appreciate it.
Oh no, this has been fun. It's a great way to start a Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
And so I love talking about this topic. So yes, please don't hesitate to contact me. We have a lot of shy people this morning, or maybe everybody's still trying to wake up a little bit.
Need some coffee.
Zoom through this information. So if there's any concept that I can provide in further detail, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Dawn. I'll follow up with you soon.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.